What happens when a globally recognized figure walks onto a talk show set, ready to share her truth, only to have everything unravel in spectacular fashion? In just 32 seconds of searing back and forth, a guest who arrived with confidence would find herself escorted off the stage, her reputation shattered, her composure lost, and her exit becoming one of the most shocking moments in television history. This is the story of how one interview spiraled completely out of control. The studio lights were hot, the cameras were rolling, and Piers Morgan sat behind his desk with that trademark intensity he brought to every single interview. He was known for asking the tough questions, the ones that made people squirm, the ones that cut through the polished PR responses and got to the heart of the matter. His show was built on confrontation, on holding people accountable, on refusing to let anyone get away with half-truths or carefully crafted narratives. And on this particular day, his guest was someone who had spent years in the spotlight, someone who had married into one of the most famous families on earth, someone who had generated more headlines than perhaps any other public figure in recent memory. Meghan Markle walked onto that set expecting sympathy, expecting a platform to share her side, expecting the audience to rally behind her. She was about to discover just how wrong she was. From the moment she sat down, there was tension in the air. You could feel it. The audience could feel it. Piers could definitely feel it. Meghan settled into her chair with a slight smile, that practiced, camera-ready expression she had perfected over years of public appearances. She crossed her legs, smoothed her outfit, and looked directly at Piers with an air of confidence that suggested she thought this would be easy. Piers started with a simple question. "Thank you for joining us today. I want to get straight to it. You've made some very serious allegations about your time in the royal family. Allegations about racism, about being denied mental health support, about feeling trapped. These are heavy accusations. Can you provide any specific examples? Any concrete evidence to back up these claims?" Meghan's smile faded just slightly. "Well, Piers, I think my experience speaks for itself. The institution made it very clear that I wasn't welcome. The way I was treated, the things that were said behind closed doors, the lack of support when I needed it most. These aren't things that get documented in official records. These are lived experiences." "Lived experiences," Piers repeated, leaning forward. "That's a phrase we hear a lot these days. But when you make accusations as serious as racism, don't you think you owe it to everyone involved to be specific? Who said what? When did it happen? Give us something concrete." "I don't think I need to provide you with a detailed breakdown of every conversation," Meghan responded, her voice taking on a sharper edge. "My truth is my truth. And frankly, the fact that you're sitting here demanding receipts just proves how difficult it is for people like me to be believed." "People like you," Piers said, raising an eyebrow. "What does that mean exactly? Because from where I'm sitting, you're someone who married a prince, lived in palaces, had access to resources most people can only dream of, and now you're positioning yourself as a victim. I'm simply asking you to back up your claims with facts." The audience was silent. You could hear every breath, every subtle shift in the seats. This wasn't going the way Meghan had planned, and it was starting to show on her face. "You clearly have an agenda here," Meghan said, her voice rising slightly. "You've never believed anything I've said. You've written countless articles criticizing me, attacking me, questioning my motives. This isn't an interview. This is an ambush." Piers didn't flinch. "An ambush would be not telling you I was going to ask these questions. I'm a journalist. My job is to ask difficult questions, especially when someone makes serious allegations without providing evidence. If your claims are true, prove it. Show us the receipts, as you put it. Otherwise, how is anyone supposed to take this seriously?" "Because women should be believed," Meghan shot back, her composure cracking. Because when someone tells you they were hurting, when someone tells you they felt isolated and unsupported, you don't interrogate them like they're on trial. You listen. You empathize. You believe them. I absolutely believe in listening, Piers responded calmly. But I also believe in evidence, in facts, in not rushing to condemn people based on vague accusations. You've essentially accused the royal family, one of the most respected institutions in the world, of racism and cruelty. That's not a small thing. That requires proof. Meghan was visibly frustrated now. Her hands were gesturing more emphatically. Her voice was louder, and that polished veneer was starting to crack wide open. This is exactly the problem. This is exactly why people don't come forward. Because they know they'll be put through this interrogation, this disbelief. Or maybe, Piers said, his voice steady and measured, people are skeptical because your story keeps changing, because the timeline doesn't always add up, because there are inconsistencies. I'm not saying you didn't have a difficult time. I'm saying that making accusations without proof is dangerous and unfair. You know what's unfair? Meghan's voice was sharp now, cutting through the studio like a knife. What's unfair is sitting here being grilled by someone who has made a career out of tearing me down. Someone who has never once given me the benefit of the doubt. Someone who clearly has a personal vendetta. The audience stirred. This was getting heated, and everyone could sense it. A personal vendetta, Piers repeated, his expression unchanging. Is that what we're calling journalism now? Because I've been equally tough on plenty of other public figures. I held politicians accountable. I questioned celebrities. I pushed back against narratives that didn't hold up under scrutiny. That's my job. And if you can't handle that, perhaps you shouldn't have agreed to come on this show. Maybe I shouldn't have, Meghan snapped. Maybe I should have known better than to expect any kind of fairness from you. Fairness, Piers said, is giving you a platform to speak and also holding you accountable for what you say. That's exactly what I'm doing. If you want to make accusations, be prepared to back them up. If you want sympathy without scrutiny, this isn't the right place. Meghan stood up slightly in her chair, her body language screaming defensiveness. You don't get to tell me how to tell my story. You don't get to decide what's valid and what isn't. I lived through it. Me, not you. And I'm asking you to explain it, Piers countered, his voice still remarkably calm, considering how heated Meghan was becoming. That's all I'm asking. Explain it with specifics, with details, with anything beyond vague feelings and accusations. This is ridiculous, Meghan said, shaking her head. This is absolutely ridiculous. I came here thinking I could have an honest conversation, and instead I'm being attacked. You're not being attacked, Piers said firmly. You're being questioned. There's a difference, and if you can't tell the difference, that's concerning. Don't you dare lecture me about what's concerning. Meghan's voice was rising to a level that was making everyone in the studio uncomfortable. You sit there in your privileged position, protected by your platform, and you attack people who are vulnerable, people who are just trying to tell their truth. Your truth, Piers said, and there was something almost tired in his voice now, is not the same as the truth. Your feelings are valid. Your experiences matter. But that doesn't mean everyone has to accept your version of events without question. That's not how truth works. Oh, so now you're the arbiter of truth? Meghan's laugh was bitter, harsh. That's rich. That's really rich coming from you. I'm not the arbiter of anything, Piers replied. I'm simply asking for evidence, for consistency, for something that goes beyond, believe me because I say so. That's not unreasonable. Meghan was breathing heavily now, her hands gripping the arms of her chair. You know what? I don't have to sit here and take this. I don't have to justify myself to you or anyone else. My experience is valid, whether you believe it or not. Then why did you come on the show? Piers asked. And it was such a simple question, but it hung in the air like a bomb. If you're not willing to engage with challenging questions, if you're not willing to provide any kind of substantiation for your claims, why agree to an interview? Why not just release a statement? Because I thought, Meghan said, her voice shaking with anger, that maybe, just maybe, I could reach people who would actually listen, who would actually care. But clearly, you're not one of those people. I am listening, Piers said. I'm listening very carefully, and what I'm hearing is a lot of accusations without backup, a lot of emotion without facts. And when I point that out, you get defensive and accusatory. That's not my fault. That's yours. The words landed like a slap. Meghan's face flushed red. Her jaw tightened. And for a moment, it looked like she might actually walk off the set right then and there. But she didn't. Not yet. Instead, she leaned forward, her eyes locked on Piers with an intensity that was almost frightening. You don't know what it's like to be targeted the way I've been targeted. To have every single thing you do scrutinized, twisted, turned into ammunition against you. You don't know what that does to a person. You're right, Piers said. I don't know exactly what that's like. But I do know what it's like to face criticism. To have people disagree with me. To be challenged on my views. And I don't respond by claiming everyone's out to get me. I defend my positions with facts and evidence. This isn't about positions, Meghan's voice cracked. This is about my life, my mental health, my safety. And you're sitting there treating it like it's some kind of debate topic. Because you made it a public issue, Piers said, his patience clearly wearing thin. You chose to go on international television and make these allegations. You chose to write books about it. You chose to do interviews. You made this public. And when something becomes public, it gets scrutinized. That's how it works. So I should just stay silent, Meghan demanded. Just accept the abuse. Just let people say whatever they want about me. No, Piers said. But if you're going to speak out, do it responsibly. Do it with evidence. Do it in a way that doesn't destroy people's reputations based on feelings alone. Meghan laughed again, that same bitter sound. You're unbelievable. You're actually unbelievable. And you're deflecting, Piers shot back. Every time I ask you for specifics, you pivot to how unfair the question is. Every time I challenge your narrative, you claim I'm attacking you. That's not productive. That's not honest. Don't you dare question my honesty. Meghan's voice was loud enough now that it echoed through the studio. Don't you dare sit there and call me a liar. I didn't call you a liar, Piers said, his voice cutting through her anger with surgical precision. But you're certainly not being forthcoming with details that would support your story. And that makes people suspicious. Rightfully so. Meghan stood up, actually stood up from her chair. The cameras zoomed in, capturing every moment of her fury. I'm done. I'm done with this. I'm done with you. I came here to share my experience, and all you've done is attack me, question me, dismiss me. This is exactly the kind of treatment that drove me away in the first place. Sit down, Piers said, and his voice had an edge to it now. Not loud, but firm, authoritative. You agreed to this interview. You don't get to storm off just because you don't like the questions. Watch me, Meghan said, and there was something almost triumphant in her voice, like she thought walking out would make her look strong, would make her look like she was taking a stand. If you walk off this set, Piers said, his words measured and deliberate, it will confirm everything I've been saying, that you can't handle scrutiny, that you make allegations you can't support, that when challenged, you run away. Meghan froze. For just a second, she hesitated, and you could see the calculation happening behind her eyes. She was weighing her options, trying to decide if leaving would hurt her more than staying, but her anger won out. I don't care what you think, she said, her voice cold. I don't care what anyone thinks. I know my truth, and that's enough. Clearly it's not, Piers replied, or you wouldn't be here trying so desperately to convince everyone of it. That was it. That was the final straw. Meghan grabbed her purse, her movements sharp and aggressive. "You're a bully," she said, pointing at Piers. "A small, insecure bully who tears people down to make himself feel big. And I will not sit here and be bullied anymore." "Asking questions is not bullying," Piers said, still seated, still composed. "But throwing insults when you can't answer those questions certainly says a lot about your character." "My character?" Meghan's voice was shrill now. "You want to talk about character? You've spent years attacking me. Years. Writing horrible things. Saying horrible things. Turning people against me. And now you have the audacity to question my character." "I've written critically about your actions," Piers said. "About the inconsistencies in your story. About the way you've played the victim while living in luxury. That's not a personal attack. That's commentary on your public behavior." "It's harassment," Meghan shouted. "It's targeted harassment, and everyone knows it. Everyone knows you have it out for me." "What everyone knows," Piers said, his voice dropping lower, more intense, "is that you can't handle being held accountable. You want everyone to accept your narrative without question, and when someone dares to push back, you cry victim. Again." The studio was dead silent, except for Meghan's heavy breathing. She looked around at the cameras, at the crew, at the audience, as if expecting someone to come to her defense. But no one moved. No one spoke. "This interview is over," she declared. "Yes," Piers said simply. "It is." And then, in a move that shocked everyone, Piers turned to someone off camera. "Security, please escort our guest out." Meghan's eyes went wide. "Excuse me?" "You wanted to leave," Piers said calmly. "I'm making sure you do. Safely and efficiently." "You're kicking me off your show?" Meghan's voice was a mix of disbelief and outrage. "You quit," Piers corrected. "I'm just facilitating your exit." Two security guards appeared, professional and polite but firm. They approached Meghan, who stood there looking absolutely stunned, like she couldn't believe this was actually happening. "This is insane," she muttered, but she was already moving toward the exit, the security guards flanking her. As she reached the edge of the set, she turned back one more time. "You'll regret this," she called out to Piers. He didn't even look at her. He was already shuffling his papers, preparing to address the camera, to talk directly to the audience about what had just transpired. "The only thing I regret," he said, his voice carrying across the studio, "is giving you a platform to spread unsubstantiated allegations in the first place." Meghan opened her mouth to respond, but one of the security guards gently touched her elbow, guiding her away. She disappeared behind the curtain, her exit captured by every camera in the building. Piers turned to face the camera directly. His expression was serious, his tone measured. "Ladies and gentlemen, what you just witnessed was someone who came on this show expecting to be treated with kid gloves, expecting to make serious accusations without being questioned. And when that didn't happen, when she was asked to provide evidence for her claims, she couldn't handle it. She melted down. She threw insults. And ultimately, she walked away because she couldn't defend her own narrative." He paused, letting that sink in. This is what happens when people confuse feelings with facts, when they believe their personal truth supersedes objective reality, when they think that making accusations is enough, that proof is somehow optional. It's not. It never has been, and it never will be. The audience was still silent, processing everything that had just happened. "Some of you watching at home might think I was too hard on her," Piers continued, "that I should have been more sympathetic, more gentle. But here's the thing. When someone makes allegations of racism, of institutional cruelty, of being deliberately harmed, those are serious charges. They damage reputations. They destroy trust. And they deserve to be examined critically, not blindly accepted." He leaned forward slightly, his intensity ratcheting up. "If we live in a world where anyone can make any accusation without proof, where feelings trump facts, where being questioned is considered an attack, then we're in serious trouble. Truth matters. Evidence matters. And holding people accountable for their words matters. That's what I did today. That's what I'll continue to do. And if that makes me unpopular with some people, so be it. The camera held on his face for a long moment before cutting to commercial, and the audience erupted into a mix of applause and shocked murmurs. Backstage, Meghan was furious. She was pacing back and forth, her publicist trying desperately to calm her down, to get her to stop talking before she made things worse. "Did you see what he did?" Meghan demanded. "Did you see how he treated me? How dare he? How dare he kick me off his show?" Her publicist was typing frantically on a phone, probably already crafting damage control statements. "We need to get ahead of this. We need to control the narrative." "The narrative?" Meghan laughed, but there was no humor in it. "The narrative is that I just got humiliated on live television. That's the narrative." "Then we spin it," the publicist said. "We say he was hostile, aggressive, that he created an unsafe environment." "He'll just deny it," Meghan said, but she was already nodding, already buying into the idea. "But yes, that's what we say. That he was the problem. That he made it impossible for me to share my truth." Back in the studio, Piers was wrapping up the show. He addressed the camera one final time, his expression neutral, but his words pointed. "To our guest who left us today, I hope you understand that this wasn't personal. This was professional. This was journalism. And if you can't handle that, then perhaps public life isn't for you. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow." The credits rolled, the lights dimmed, and Piers sat back in his chair, knowing full well that what had just happened would be talked about for days, weeks, maybe even years. He had asked the questions no one else was willing to ask. He had pushed back when everyone else was nodding along, and he had refused to let someone use his platform to make unsubstantiated accusations without challenge. Some would call him a hero. Others would call him a villain. But one thing was certain. This interview would go down in history as one of the most explosive confrontations ever captured on television. And Meghan Markle's dramatic exit, escorted by security after her complete meltdown, would be replayed over and over again. A perfect example of what happens when someone's narrative collides with reality. The audience filed out slowly, still buzzing with energy from what they had witnessed. Some were texting friends, spreading the word about what had just gone down. Others were already pulling up social media, eager to see the reactions, to add their own commentary to the growing firestorm. Because that's what this was, a firestorm, and it had just begun.